The Fatah-Hamas conflict, also referred to as the Palestinian Civil War, was a conflict between the two main Palestinian political parties, Fatah and Hamas, resulting in the split of the Palestinian Authority in 2007. The reconciliation process and unification of Hamas and Fatah administrations has not finalized as of September 2015. The Palestinian Independent Commission for Citizens' Rights has found that more than 600 Palestinians were killed in the fighting from January 2006 to May 2007. Dozens more were killed or executed in the following years as part of the conflict. Overview. Tensions between Fatah and Hamas began to rise in 2005 after the death of Yasser Arafat. After the Hamas legislative victory in 2006, relations were marked by sporadic factional fighting. This became more intense after the two parties repeatedly failed to reach a deal to share government power, escalating in June 2007 and resulting in Hamas' takeover of Gaza. A major issue was control over the border crossings, especially the Rafah border crossing. As of August 2007, the Palestinian Authority became split into two polities, each seeing itself as the true representative of the Palestinian people, the Fatah-ruled Palestinian National Authority and the Hamas government. In Gaza, preceding events, involvement of Britain. Documents published in the Palestine Papers reveal that the British intelligence MI6 in 2004 helped draw up a security plan for Fatah-led Palestinian Authority. The plan mentioned as an objective, encourage and enable the Palestinian Authority to fully meet its security obligations under Phase 1 of the roadmap. It proposes a number of ways of degrading the capabilities of rejectionists, naming Hamas, PIJ and the ALEC USA brigades. The plan was described by The Guardian as a wide-ranging crackdown on Hamas. The supposed plan for a Fatah counterinsurgents against Hamas backfired in June 2006 when Hamas won the 2006 elections. Israeli disengagement from Gaza. In July 2004, there were clashes between rival Hamas-led sections of the security forces in Gaza and violent protests, which were widely seen as a power struggle ahead of Israel's promised pullout from Gaza. On 16 February 2005, the Israeli parliament had approved its disengagement from Gaza, which would drastically change the Israeli-Palestinian relations in Gaza. The disengagement plan from 2003 was already adopted by the Israeli government in June 2004. Israel withdrew from Gaza in September 2005. Control of the Gaza-Egypt border was on the Egyptian side, handed over to Egypt. The Fatah-dominated PA had been given control on the Gazan side at the Rafah border crossing. The 2005 Philadelphia Accord between Israel and Egypt turned over control of the border to Egypt. From February 2005, a technocrat Fatah-led PA government controlled the Palestinian National Security Forces. From November 2005 until June 2007, the Rafah crossing was jointly controlled by Egypt and the Palestinian Authority, with the European Union from the 24th of November 2005 monitoring the activities on the Gazan side. 2006 elections and Hamas government. Tensions between Fatah and Hamas intensified after Hamas won the elections of 2006 and the international community increased the pressure on the Palestinian Authority. As a result of the Hamas-led government's refusal to commit to non-violence, recognition of the State of Israel, and acceptance of previous agreements, Israel, the Middle East Quartet, several Western states, and the Arab states imposed sanctions suspending all foreign aid. The PA government, who had with President Abbas shared authority over the security forces, was no longer in the hands of Fatah. When Abbas and Hamas in the struggle for power failed to reach an agreement, Abbas appointed, on 6 April 2006, the Fatah-affiliated Abu Shak head of the security forces, bypassing the Hamas interior minister. In response, Hamas formed its own security force. On 25 June 2006, militant groups conducted a cross-border raid into Israel. The Israeli response left Hamas with half its parliamentary bloc and its cabinet ministers in the West Bank in Israeli custody. Political deadlock. The semi-constitutional and semi-presidential Basic Law gave president and government a shared political power. Fatah refused to cooperate with Hamas. The powerful Fatah-backed President Abbas was supported by the international community and more or less tolerated by Israel. The Hamas-dominated Palestinian Authority and the parliament, on the other hand, were boycotted, and international financial aid was rendered via Abbas, bypassing the Palestinian government. Because Fatah and Hamas did not cooperate, the parliament became dysfunctional and the PA became in financial distress. Involvement of US, Israel and Arab states. Several sources speak of considerable involvement by the United States, Israel and Arab states. After Hamas in 2006 announced the formation of its own security service, the executive force, which was denounced by Mahmoud Abbas as unconstitutional, the Presidential Guard of Mahmoud Abbas was enlarged and equipped, and its members trained by the US, Egypt and Jordan. Also, a PLC council member for Hamas, Anwar Zaban, believes that Mohammed Dahlan had a big plan to remove the roots of Hamas, the resistance, in Gaza and the West Bank. According to the IISS, the June 2007 escalation was triggered by Hamas' conviction that the PA's Presidential Guard, loyal to Mahmoud Abbas, was being positioned to take control of Gaza. The US had helped build up the Presidential Guard to 3,500 men since August 2006. The U.S. committed $59 million for training and non-lethal equipment for the Presidential Guard, and persuaded Arab allies to fund the purchase of further weapons. Israel, too, allowed light arms to flow to members of the Presidential Guard. Jordan and Egypt hosted at least 2 battalions for training. Timeline: March 2006 to December 2006. Rise of tensions. Following the elections, Hamas announced the formation of its own security service, the executive force, appointing Jamal Abu Samhadana, a prominent militant, at its head. Abbas had denounced the move as unconstitutional, saying that only the Palestinian president could command armed forces. The period from March to December 2006 was marked by tensions when Palestinian Authority commanders affiliated to Fatah refused to take orders from the Hamas-led Palestinian Authority government. Tensions further grew between the two Palestinian factions after they failed to reach a deal to share government power. Facing international sanctions, the Hamas-led Palestinian Authority depended on the import of large amounts of cash to pay its debts. On 14 December 2006, Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh, carrying tens of millions in donations, was denied by Israel entry into Gaza via the Rafah border crossing. Angry Hamas militants stormed the post, which was manned by European monitors and Abbas Presidential Guard, responsible for security there. After guards had fired at the Hamas militants, they took over the hall, firing shots into the air. A Hamas official tried to get the militants to disperse. Haniyeh had already cut short his trip due to mounting tensions between Hamas and rival faction Fatah, after 3 sons of a Fatah security chief were killed days earlier. The same day, Haniyeh was allowed to return to Gaza without the money, but while crossing the border, gunmen attacked his car. killing one bodyguard. One of Hariya's sons was moderately wounded and his political advisor Ahmed Youssef was lightly wounded. At the time, Fatah plc member and former Fatah security chief Mohammed Dahlan was blamed for this apparent assassination attempt. Peace activist Ellen Rosser also believes that it were Dahlan's men who tried to assassinate Hariya. Fighting broke out in the West Bank after Palestinian National Security Forces fired on a Hamas rally in Ramallah. Security units loyal to Mahmoud Abbas and dressed in riot gear used clubs and rifles to beat back the demonstrators before the shooting broke out. At least 20 people were wounded in the clashes, which came shortly after the attempt to assassinate Ismail Haniyeh. On the 16th of December, Abbas called for new parliamentary and presidential elections, but his advisor Saeb Erekat said that elections cannot be held before the middle of next year for legal and technical reasons. A senior Hamas lawmaker called it a real coup against the democratically elected government. Hamas challenged the legality of holding an early election, maintaining its right to hold the full term of its elected officers. Hamas characterized it as an attempted Fatah coup by Abbas, using undemocratic means to overthrow the results of a democratically elected government. Fatah leaders called for the dismissal of the Hamas-led government and the establishment of an emergency cabinet. One Fatah operative said that Abbas had been threatening to call early elections for the past 5 months and that more threats are not going to work. The announcement of elections provoked high tensions and gun battles between Hamas and Fatah supporters. Abbas strongly denied allegations that members of Fatah and the 417 Presidential Guard were behind the assassination attempt on Ismail Haniyeh, and he criticized the kidnapping of IDF soldier Gilad Shalit. On the 17th of December, pro-Fatah gunmen attacked Hamas Foreign Minister Mahmoud Sahar. Pro-Hamas militiamen retaliated with shots at the home of President Abbas, wounding 5 guards. A member of Fatah's Force 17 was killed, together with a passing woman. At the end of the day, Fatah and Hamas agreed on a ceasefire, though gunfire continued outside Mohammed Dahlan's house. Intense factional fighting continued throughout December 2006 and January 2007 in the Gaza Strip. After a month of fighting, which left 33 people dead, President Mahmoud Abbas attempted to incorporate the Hamas-led executive force into the security apparatus loyal to the president. Hamas rejected Abbas' order, and instead announced plans to double the size of its force. On the 6th of January 2007, Abbas outlawed the executive force and ordered its disbandment. Fighting continued until a ceasefire was implemented on the 30th of January. The dueling announcements raised the prospect of an intensified armed standoff. Abbas's only means of enforcing the order appeared to be coercive action by police and security units under his command, which were relatively weak in the Gaza Strip, Hamas's stronghold. Fierce fighting took place after Hamas killed 6 people on the 1st of February in an ambush on a Gaza convoy which delivered equipment for Abbas' Palestinian Presidential Guard. According to diplomats, meant to counter smuggling of more powerful weapons into Gaza by Hamas for its fast-growing executive force. According to Hamas, the deliveries to the Presidential Guard were intended to instigate sedition, while withholding money and assistance from the Palestinian people. On the 8th of February 2007, the Saudi-brokered Fatah-Hamas Mecca agreement produced an agreement on a Palestinian national unity government signed by Fatah and Hamas leaders. The agreement included measures to end the internecine violence. The unity government was formed on the 17th of March. However, it struggled to resolve the 2 most pressing issues, an economic crisis and a collapse of security in Gaza. Violent incidents continued through March and April 2007. More than 90 people were killed in this period. In mid-May 2007, clashes erupted once again in the streets of Gaza. In less than 18 days, more than 50 Palestinians were killed. Leaders of both parties tried to stop the fighting by calling dozens of truces, but none of them held for longer than a few days. June 2007, split of government throughout 10 and the 15th of June of fighting. Hamas took control of the main north-south road and the coastal road, and removed Fatah officials. The ICRC estimated that at least 118 people were killed and more than 550 wounded during the fighting in the week up to June 15. Human Rights Watch accused both sides with violations of international humanitarian law, including the targeting and killing of civilians, public executions of political opponents and captives, throwing prisoners off high-rise apartment buildings, fighting in hospitals, and shooting from a jeep marked with TV insignias. The International Committee of the Red Cross has denounced attacks in and around 2 hospitals in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. The Israeli government closed all checkpoints on the borders of Gaza in response to the violence. On the 14th of June, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas announced the dissolution of the current unity government and the declaration of a state of emergency. Palestinian Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh was dismissed, and Abbas began to rule Gaza and the West Bank by presidential decree. Hamas spokesman Sami Abu Zuhri responded by declaring that President Abbas's decision was, in practical terms, worthless, asserting that Haniyeh remains the head of the government even if it was dissolved by the president. Nathan Brown of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace commented that under the 2003 Palestinian Constitution, Abbas clearly had the right to declare a state of emergency and dismiss the Prime Minister, but the state of emergency could continue only for 30 days. After that, it would need to be approved by the Legislative Council. Neither Hamas nor Fatah had enough votes to form a new government under the Constitution. The Palestinian Center for Human Rights condemned Hamas' decision to resolve the conflict militarily, but argued that steps taken by President Mahmoud Abbas in response to these events violate the basic law and undermine the basic law in a manner that is no less dangerous. On the 15th of June, Abbas appointed Salam Fayyad as Prime Minister and gave him the task of forming a new government. The international community smoothly recognized the government. Within days, the U.S. recognized Abbas' emergency government and ended a 15-month economic and political boycott of the Palestinian Authority in a bid to bolster President Abbas and the new Fatah-led government. The European Union similarly announced plans to resume direct aid to the Palestinians, while Prime Minister Ehud Olmert of Israel said it would release to Abbas Palestinian tax revenues that Israel had withheld since Hamas took control of the Palestinian parliament. West Bank clashes. The attacks of Hamas gunmen against Fatah security forces in the Gaza Strip resulted in a reaction of Fatah gunmen against Hamas institutions in the West Bank. Although Hamas's numbers were greater in the Gaza Strip, Fatah forces were greater in the West Bank. The West Bank had its first casualty when the bullet-riddled body of a Hamas militant was found in Nablus, sparking the fear that Fatah would use its advantage in the West Bank for retaliation against its members' deaths in the Gaza Strip on the same day. Hamas also declared that it was in full control of Gaza, a claim denied by Abbas. On the 16th of June, a Fatah-linked militant group, the Alec USA Martyrs Brigades, stormed the Hamas-controlled parliament based in Ramallah in the West Bank. This act, including the ransack of the Ministry of Education, was seen as a reaction to similar looting occurring following Hamas' military success in Gaza. On the 20th of June, Hamas leader Mahmoud Sahar declared that if Fatah continued to try to uproot Hamas in the West Bank, It could lead to Fatah's downfall there as well. He would not deny when asked that Hamas resistance against Fatah would take the form of attacks and suicide bombings similar to those that Hamas has used against Israel in the past. October to November 2007, renewed clashes. On the 17th of October, clashes erupted in eastern Gaza between Hamas security forces and members of the powerful Hells clan, leaving up to 2 dead on both sides. Fatah and Hamas officials gave conflicting accounts of what caused the fighting, but the dispute seems to have originated when Hamas officials demanded that the clan return a governmental car. Another gun battle on October 20 killed one member of the clan and a 13-year-old boy. During the same day, in Rafah, one woman was killed and 8 people were injured when Hamas security members traded fire with Islamic Jihad activists. 2 days later, 7 more Palestinians were killed in the internal fighting, including some Hamas militants and a Palestinian Islamic Jihad militant. On the 12th of November, a large demonstration dedicated to the memory of late Palestinian Authority President Yasser Arafat was organized by Fatah in Gaza City, with over 200,000 participants. This was the largest Fatah demonstration in the Gaza Strip since the Hamas takeover. The demonstration was forcibly dispersed by Hamas gunmen, who fired into the crowd. At least 6 civilians were killed and over 80 people were injured, some from being trampled in the resulting stampede. The smaller militant group Islamic Jihad, whose members have clashed with Hamas several times, condemned the shootings. 2008 Reconciliation Agreement. On the 23rd of March 2008, Hamas and Fatah signed an agreement in Sana'a, Yemen that amounted to a reconciliation deal. It called for a return of the Gaza Strip to the pre-June 2007 situation, though this has not happened. On the 8th of November 2008, Palestinian reconciliation talks due to be held in Cairo were called off on Saturday after Hamas announced a boycott in protest at the detention of hundreds of its members by President Mahmoud Abbas's security forces. Aftermath. On the 1st of January 2008, at least 8 people died in factional fighting in the Gaza Strip. On the 31st of May 2009, 6 people were killed as Palestinian Authority and Hamas forces clashed in Qalqilia. Ethan Bronner described the fighting as an indication that the Palestinian unity needed for creation of a state is far off. Following the Egyptian Revolution of 2011 and the deposal of Egyptian President Morsi in July 2013, tensions between Fatah and Hamas reached a new high. According to Barakat al-Farah, the PLO ambassador in Cairo, the Egyptian US-backed El-Sisi regime, which annually receives some $1.5 billion military aid from the US, will keep the Rafah border crossing closed until forces loyal to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas have regained control. A Hamas official accused the PA leadership of playing a major role in enforcing the blockade of the Gaza Strip.